everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to have some festive fun full of colors, stencils, layers, and we're going to do the negative painting technique. I'm going back in time and revisiting a technique and a style that I used to do all the time. And to do that, I'm actually repurposing, reclaiming this canvas. It was something that didn't work out. I've given it a coat of gesso. There's some modeling paste underneath there. I'm just going to take this and use this as my base. This is, I believe, a 9 by 14 canvas. 12 by 14? I'm not sure. Anyways, first up, we are going to add a base coat of bright vivid colors. I'm going to give you the names of the colors that you're seeing me apply here in case you want to do something similar. I am putting this on wet. I'm using my fingers. I am using a makeup sponge to apply it. I'm taking the 4 basic colors, and when you mix them wet on wet, sometimes you're getting the secondary color. Yellow and blue make green. You make orange with the magenta and the yellow, and so on. I'm just working on. My goal here was to just have fun with color. I've been doing a lot of decoupage and Christmas stuff, and while this one is still seasonal and festive, it really changed things up for me. As I said, this is a type of canvas art that I used to do a lot. And then your art evolves and you get into other techniques and other styles of art. So this was like visiting that old friend, that comfortable pair of jeans, although I had forgotten a few things about working on a canvas. Now, canvases give. There is some give, as opposed to working on an art journal page or a wooden cradle or a canvas board that is pretty solid. This gives, and that's going to impact stenciling and stamping that we do on it. Now, this also has a lot of texture on it because there was modeling paste, and I'm just reusing an old used canvas, and that's going to impact what we do and how we do it and how things work out. So I'm just moving around adding colors. Now here are the colors: cadmium yellow, quinacridone magenta, bright aqua green, and cobalt blue. Now moving forward, I might add some Prussian blue, black, and white, as well as those same colors. Now we are going to have some fun building layers of interest, and I mean layers. So I'm starting off stamping with this DIY stamp. Now, because there's a canvas and it gives, you could put something underneath it in order to try to get better stamping. Now remember, I said there's texture on there, so no matter how I try with the give of the canvas and the modeling paste that's there, I'm not going to get perfect stamping. And at this stage, I don't want or need perfect stamping. I am simply building layers of interest. Now, whatever I put on the initial layers is going to be pushed back by the layers that come after. I wanted to start off with black in the base coat. Now, not everything that you see in these first layers is going to show through completely as we progress. Now, when you do something like this, you never quite know where you end up. This stencil is called Fantangle, and it's the 12 by 12 one. It's from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm using white. I chose this stencil because it has a larger scale pattern, and I like using larger and using white at this stage. It knocks back the colors. It gets rid of those stark lines where you've mixed those colors, softens the edges. I love the movement of this fan type motif, and it's a great stencil for using on your mixed media pieces. There are always some stencils that you can just use them on anything, and those are the ones I like to build my stash with. In fact, most of the ones that I use on this canvas are those kind. So if you're looking to build your stash, you might look into some of these stencils. So I'm just working my way. I'm turning the stencil so that fan is going one way and the other way. And I really like the background at this point. Now, one of the challenges when you're adding lots of layers is not falling in love with what you see, or being afraid of doing something else that's going to wreck what's here. If you love all those layers of interest, you need to push yourself. This one is called knitted stitching, and again, it's the larger scale. This is a 12 by 12, and I'm using the bright aqua. Remember I said I'm using the same colors that I had in the background, targeting them on other areas to get that contrast with black and white. Again, this is one of my favorite all-purpose stencils. And I'm putting the aqua where there is the magenta. I'm putting the aqua where the yellow is, so it shows up. Now, to be honest, at this stage, I do not know what I'm going to do on this canvas. I just needed some fun, colorful color therapy in my life, and that was my end goal. So I am kind of figuring it out as I go. So don't think you need to have everything figured out before you get there. Now, this video, as it goes on, you may begin to wonder, when is enough enough, and how do you know when you're done? Here I'm coming in with that same stencil and magenta. This time I'm targeting areas that the magenta is going to show up, the yellow, the bright aqua. I like using the same stencil with two different colors. That ties things together but adds interest. This stencil, another favorite, is the 6-inch one. I'm moving to smaller scale now, and this is Screenview, and I'm coming in with white. Now, I know at this point in time that I'm going to use or attempt to use the negative painting technique. And that technique works really well when you have a very colorful background. I'm just going on, and it's changing. Is there a point in time in here where you like what you see? Would you have stopped? Now, as to the question about when do you know when to stop, I don't know. I just keep going till suddenly I put something on, I go, yeah, that's it. It's intuitive. Here I've got Live, Love, Laugh stamps that I bought at Michael's years ago. It was in a set. And I'm stamping the words up and down, sideways, all over the canvas. Now, because it's a canvas and because there's texture on there, I'm not necessarily getting a perfect word stamp. I just want a little bit of script back there, and if some of those words show up in the end, that's bonus. I just keep going through the live, love, laugh, and I'm putting them, horizontally and vertically. At this point, I also don't know which orientation of the canvas I'm going to end up using. So I want to keep my options open. Now I grab my bin of round and mark makers. I've got blocks in here, and I'm going to dip this into acrylic paint of different colors and use these mark makers as stamps, basically. Children's blocks, squares, are perfect. And I'm just going to add, again, I'm only using the colors that are already in the canvas. I don't want to introduce too many colors. There's enough going on. This canvas getting very busy. Are you thinking this is a hot mess? I'm might have been thinking that too. And that's okay. Because I know by going through the process numerous times that at some point in time, it will all come together. You have to have faith that that's going to happen. So I decided I needed a little bling, so I grabbed that Screenview stencil and I'm adding some gold shimmer to the background. This just adds another area of interest, that shimmer as opposed to the text, as opposed to whatever. It's color, it's... Now I grab my Prussian blue, this onion blossom stencil. I like using just the top. I like this better than just dots. Although on here, it's really not doing what I thought it would do, but it's another layer of interest. And I'm not doing housework, so this is a win. Have you counted how many stencils and how many mark makers I've used? I've lost count. Is this too much? I guess you have to wait till you get to the final product to determine that. This stencil is called Snowflake Sparkles. I knew I wanted to do a winter / holiday season thing, and I'm using that one snowflake. Actually, I use a couple of the snowflakes, and I want white. My background got a little too busy. I want it a little bit more solid. Now, because everything is permanent underneath, you can grab a baby wipe and wipe something off if it doesn't work out. If you had used anything that's water activated, you're kind of going to disturb the lower layers. That's why I prefer using just acrylic paint. So I'm adding that motif all over this. And it was at this point that I said, yes, this is working. That white at this level just seemed to push things back and brought everything into focus where I could say, I think my background is close to being done. I chose this motif because it's the biggest. It's got the most open space for a snowflake. Although it's a snowflake, it reads as like a sunflower to me as well. So I could use it out of season. Then I come in with a smaller snowflake. Again, one that is more solid in nature because I like adding the white. It's making it frosty, more wintry in my mind. And right about now, I am loving my background. So I know I'm done. I decided that I want to put some Christmas bulbs along the bottom. So this was a free printable. I sized it accordingly. I have bigger ones and smaller ones, and I make templates, and I play with how it looks on the canvas. Now this is my Inktense pencil. You can use this Stabilo All pencil. The difference is the Inktense pencil, once it's activated, will become permanent. The Stabilo will not. So if you are putting wet layers later, it may smudge. So that's why I'm opting for this. Now I'm simply tracing the light bulbs out. I've arranged them because I'm visual. I need to see it and lay it out to see how everything goes. Now I played with, do I want this light bulb on top of this one? How do I want it to look? I'm tracing the whole of the light bulb out, and then either at this time or later, once I start activating the Inktense blocks, I am erasing the lines that I don't want, and I'm making that final decision about which light bulb is going to appear in front of which light bulb. Hopefully I've left enough in here for you to see, but I'm taking my time. This is difficult because, as you notice, you really can't see where I'm putting this line. There's so much going on in the background. It's very confusing. So I like to keep the templates on as much as possible. It kind of grounds me and makes it easier for me to see what I'm doing and where the tracing is. So now I'm going to start activating the Inktense pencil. And this is the negative painting part. And this goes in several steps. First, I'm going to activate the Inktense, then I'm going to come in with acrylic paint. And you're going to see that, but I do not give you all the footage. This project went over several days. And even the raw footage was almost 2 hours long. So it did take a considerable amount of time, but a lot of it's very repetitive. And this canvas is like 2 art journal pages. Speaking of art journal pages, if you don't want to work on a canvas, you could do this on a wood panel. You could do this as an art journal page. The substrate doesn't matter. The same techniques apply regardless. So here I'm just using my angle brush and water and activating the Inktense pencil. And this is giving the outline. It's making the light bulbs appear out of the background. That's the negative painting kind of technique. So I'm positioning those templates. Here I'm getting rid of the line. I've decided which light bulb is going in front of which one, which line I want to activate, and which one I'm going to erase. And you can completely erase either the Stabilo, if that's what you have, or the Inktense pencil. It's not permanent until it completely is activated and completely dried and cured. You have a little bit of playtime. So here I just want to bring up the outline enough to see. I want these light bulbs to pop out of the background. My thought at this point in time was that was all I was going to do. I did change my plan, and you have to be prepared for that based on where you end up. So again, I'm putting the light bulbs in, seeing, okay, which one am I going to want to go on top of which one? This is a process. It's not difficult, but you do need to go step by step. And if you need to put the templates on top, if you need to guide your visualness, then do it. Do whatever makes it easier for you to do it, and do it in a way that works for you. Maybe my way will work for you. So I'm just going to work my way across, activating the Inktense pencil. And I use like an indigo blue here instead of black. I wasn't sure I wanted to go stark black. So here I'm activating it, making it stand out. I want these light bulbs, my goal is to make these light bulbs stand out. And I apologize for my charging cord dangling there. I do fix that up momentarily. I love how with the negative painting, as you go and you activate this, the light bulbs just appear. Now you can use any shape. This could be mittens, it could be trees, it could be stars, it could be a flower shape, it could be just squares. It doesn't matter, the same steps. And as you go, I'm building up the layer of color. Now, because the light bulbs weren't as dark as I wanted, I am coming in now with black acrylic paint, and I'm shading around the light bulbs. I want more definition there. I need those light bulbs to stand up against the background. Because my background is so busy, I need more contrast to make those light bulbs stand out. So now you can see I've jumped ahead a little bit how much they stand out. Now the second step here is I'm taking white and I'm shading around. I go along the bottom and kind of white out that background so to make the bulb stand out, and I'm adding a little bit of a halo around the top of the light bulbs. Again, in hopes of making those light bulbs come out from the background. In my plan, this was going to be the last step with the light bulbs. In reality, I had to change my plan. But you could have left it like this. Would you have? And in fact, that was what was going through my head. Am I happy with it the way it is, or do I need to do something else? And I really didn't know the answer. At this time, I had probably put, a good couple hours, maybe 3 hours into it. So I walked away. And I thought about it. And the next day, I came up with a solution, or a couple solutions. One way I could have solved it was taking some gel prints like this and gluing that, decoupaging it onto the light bulbs, which would wholly negate all the negative painting that I've done. Because if I was going to decoupage it down, I didn't need to do any of that negative painting. So instead, I decided to give the light bulbs a wash of color. Now I'm again keeping with the colors that are in the background. I don't want to introduce anything else. And I'm giving each light bulb a wash of one of the colors or a mixture of the colors. And even that doesn't go straightforward, as you'll see, because I change my mind. I paint something one color and then it's like, that's not giving me enough interest here. I want something different. So the benefit of giving it a wash of color is I am still able to see, and you can see those first two that I've done, you're still able to see the patterning and all the work that you've put into those lower layers. And it ties it into what's up top. Now I can take a baby wipe and rub some of that off. Here I'm using the Bright Aqua. Now Bright Aqua is a very opaque paint, so it cuts through a lot of that background. You don't see a lot of it on that light bulb. And I kind of like the difference. I don't want every light bulb to look the same. Now, if I knew I was going to end up here, there was probably a more direct route. Instead, I took the scenic route. And yes, it took me more time, but it was beautiful and scenic, and I had fun playing in my studio. So it's not a loss. I'm changing up the colors, mixing the colors, so every bulb, while similar, is different. So I just keep working my way around. I'm not happy with the color there. I think, I'm evaluating it, so I'm wiping off the color here, because you can do that with acrylic paints, and I'm changing the color a little bit. So I'm painting that one, and now that one. Now I want to change this one, so I'm adding water. And if you want to take off acrylic paint, if you do a little bit of rubbing alcohol, it removes it as well. It helps you take it off. And as long as you're careful, you can, do this. So now I grab my angle brush and I'm doing more shading around these light bulbs to make them stand out. I'm using the black acrylic paint. I'm really happy with how these light bulbs are standing out from the background. My initial plan, again, it didn't work, and that's okay. I love how you can still see the patterning and all the work we did through those light bulbs. Now, this bottom part, I decided I wanted to paint them gold, but gold is very translucent. So I am painting it yellow oxide to give it a base coat. And then I'm going to come in, you're going to see me come in with gold paint and put that on top. Now, as soon as I painted these yellow, it just tied into the top. This was another one of those moments in the creative process where everything, it just came together. I really loved how this yellow, and then now it'll be gold, shows up and just makes the light bulbs. So I had painted, initially I painted the sides the colors, then I had done it white. Now, because the black is more predominant on the front, I'm edging this with black, and I'm just going around with a layer of black paint, and then I'm going to shade around to frame the canvas. We are entering the finishing part of the video. Here I'm just shading around with the black, just like I do in my art journal pages. And here I'm taking the gold and going on top of that yellow oxide, and having that base color of yellow oxide just makes it more opaque. But I love the little bling that they add to it. Now I wanted to put a sentiment on here. Now, it's a canvas, so it gives. So stenciling letters on are going to be difficult because there's texture, because there's this. So here's a workaround, and you're going to want to keep this idea in the back of your mind. I am stenciling on the excess plies of a napkin. I'm using black acrylic paint, and I'm stenciling on. This allows me, if I do a bad job of stenciling, I just have to stencil another one. No worries. I didn't wreck my canvas. I don't have to worry. This is also going to allow me a lot of freedom. I don't have to guess where it's going to look best. I don't have to risk it looking messy. So I'm just stenciling out this phrase, merry and bright, onto the excess napkin. Now, when you glue this down, the excess napkin, the white, disappears completely. My 1G wasn't looking very good, so I just stenciled another one. So this is stenciled on white paper, and I just did that for basically the organization. But I don't want that white around it. I want to see the background. I've worked really hard to make that background. And the napkin is going to allow me to, it's going to go translucent. So you're not going to see that white around the letters. Now here I'm using a liner brush with water to water cut the letters out to get rid of any of the excess napkin. Yes, it is going to go translucent. You won't see it, but I don't want the bulk. I don't want the texture there as much as possible. Now I start cutting them out one by one, and then I realize, well, if I cut each one apart, it's just easier to manipulate and easier for me to do. So I'm just going to cut each of the letters apart and save myself some headache. And then come in with the liner brush, a little bit of water. You don't need much water, and I'm just removing as much of that as I can without impacting the stenciling. And then I can place it on my canvas where I want it to be. So don't throw out those excess plies, save some, because you can use them to doing this, and you can stencil anything on them, not just letters. This stencil is from the Crafter's Workshop. I will put all the names of the stencils in the description box below. So here's one of the advantages of doing it with on the napkin. you can now addition where you want them. You can get the perfect placement without the risk. I can keep moving it around, take pictures, make sure that I'm not running out of room after I've stenciled everything on and then I've wrecked all the work that I've done. So this allows me to move it around and explore the options. Do I want it straight? Do I want it kind of wonky? How do I want it? So I just can play around with it till I get the perfect, what I think the perfect composition is. And I do play around. I'm visual. I need to see it, for me to go on there and put the stencil, and it's kind of guesswork, and sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. This way it makes it risk-free. There's one great hack for you. And I did play around with it because it's like, which one do I like best? Do I like this? Should this be higher? Should this be higher? How is it going to be? So then once I'm done with figured out where I want it, I'm going to put some fluid matte medium underneath and on top. I leave the other letters in place and glue them down, and if you zoom in, you're going to see the napkin goes translucent. Now it's napkin. If you get really rough, it may rip. But even if it does, all you have to do is you can peel it off when it's wet, even when it's dry, if you spray it with water and reactivate it and pull it off, and reposition it. Stencil out another one. You've got lots of napkin plies, nothing lost. Now you could just do that on tissue paper if that's what you have. Tissue paper doesn't go quite as translucent as the napkin, so I prefer using the napkin. Now I grab my fine line applicator bottle and I'm going to do some faux stitching with white acrylic paint. This is white acrylic paint, Liquitex Basics, that I've thinned with water to get to this consistency that holds the shape I want. I don't want to have to squeeze hard to have it come out, and I don't want it to run on the page. So it's a little trial and error when you're mixing the paint. And I just like the faux stitching. And I'm going around the light bulbs. I started with the middle ones and I'm working my way out because I don't want to put my hand in the wet paint. So at some point you may need to stop and let it dry or use the heat tool on it so you avoid putting the back of your hand against it. Then I use the black in the fine line applicator bottle to add some lines on the end of the bulb. And then I do the faux stitching with the black on the outside of the canvas. Again, it just ties everything together. So I admit it, there were times in this that I thought, OMG, whoa, I don't like what's going on here. Is this ever going to work out? But stick to it. Now I decided to add a little more sparkle. This is sparkling glitter glaze, and this is from Polyvine. But you can get, there's a Deco Art version. You're looking for a medium that has the glitter embedded in it. And I'm painting it over the bulbs. This is giving it that extra little bit of shimmer and shine, making this a really festive canvas. Now, this glaze goes on cloudy, but it dries clear. So in the end, and I'm going to show that, you're going to see the shine and the shimmer. So it's an easy way of adding some more festive feel to it. And you can see how that's just picking up the light. It's not even dry yet, and it's just making me happy. I'm glad I didn't give up because I love where this has ended up. So sometimes taking the scenic route is well worth the extra time. I've got close-ups of the finished project. Here it is. Look at that shine. Oh, I love it. This is hanging on my wall, and it'll be something I'll love for years to come. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspires you to go and create your own festive canvas. Until next time, go get creative.